How does a humble English as an additional language teacher get language learners to use and understand conceptual language? My story begins with me, John Banules, a hard-working EAL teacher at an international school in Phnom Penh. Grade 2 students have just begun a How We Express Ourselves unit with the central idea of personal perspectives influence how we create art. My first mission during this unit is to make sure students understand the word perspective. As a teacher at a PYP school, I have to help students gain proficiency with some very heady and rather nebulous words from an early age. Ideally, students will understand and be able to use these words to describe and reflect on their thinking. As a language acquisition teacher, I look at the language necessary for units and group words and language structures into levels or tiers. Tier 1 words are what we might call concrete words. These words usually have a very clean meaning and can be easily shown and understood with a few pictures or props. These are words like big, small, tree. Then we have Tier 3 words. These words are what we might call technical words. These occur in the sciences. These are words like isotope, tectonic plates, and mitosis. I teach some of these words in grade 1 and 2, but leave most for secondary teachers. The words that remain are Tier 2 words. Many of these words are very conceptual and are hard to show with simple objects or pictures. These words often have multiple meanings or can be used differently in different situations. In the PYP, we teach 8 important conceptual words unit after unit. We call these the key concepts, and they are form, function, connection, causation, change, reflection, responsibility, and finally, perspective. These words are considered to be important in the PYP because they allow us to inquire into knowledge in many different ways. Each concept can be illustrated with many countless examples. These words and the concepts they represent help drive inquiries like gears in a machine. These countless examples also make these words difficult to teach and tricky to learn for students, especially those students acquiring English as a second language. It is a tenet of language acquisition teaching that we must provide students with comprehensible input. That is, information about language and concepts that is easy to understand. Often the best form of comprehensible input is found in visuals. This is backed up by researchers like Dr. John Medina, who stresses that the brain's main learning sense is vision and is organized around sight. Gotcha. Uh-huh. Wait. What? In reflecting last year on what I wanted kids to understand about perspective, I realized that they didn't take on many of the meanings that I'd hoped for. I wanted them to see perspective as differences in seeing, thinking, experiences, and values, as well as help them to see how it related to art. I thought I'd go back and look at some of my learning engagements to see maybe where things went wrong. So I went back to my Google Calendar where I did my lesson planning last year. Just did a search of perspective to find the lessons. Looking at my lesson plans, it seems like we had compared what we saw in optical illusions. We looked at our school from maps, from photos, from satellites. We also looked at different kinds of art and discussed whether we thought it was art or not. I wondered why these lessons didn't work. I thought that if these lessons were more tightly bundled in some way, the connections between the word perspective in these examples could be strengthened. I needed some emotional connection to this content as well. There must be a movie, I thought. There was not, and it was here I decided to use my growing understandings of technology and digital storytelling in particular to help teach what I found difficult to teach. I would create a movie tailored to my students with comprehensible input, visuals, familiar scenarios, and music to serve as a springboard for conversations and discussion about perspective. At the same time, I would model how to use the art form of movie making in order to express ourselves. I would do this in part by combining my understanding of where to find free-to-reuse images, videos, music, and by creating and using some of my own music. At first, I thought it would be so difficult, but I really managed to get into the process of planning, collecting images, scripting, assembling clips, voiceovers, making edits. What I created was a movie. Students loved the novelty of watching a movie that their teacher had made, and they were quite engaged with discussions of perspective afterwards. The whole experience caused me to rethink how I design curriculum. Before, I used to organize my instruction around media I could find, whether it be in libraries or somewhere on the internet. Those days are gone. Media apps nowadays are so easy to use that it is best to create your own material that can reflect new literacies and also what your students are interested in. If I can do it, so can you. And when you know these tools and have the skills to make your own media, then you will transmit them and an enthusiasm for production to your own students. When they combine these skills with literacy learning, we can't predict where they will go in terms of telling their own stories and explaining their thinking for others.